Welcome to episode 29 of Paranormal Pendle, broadcasting to the Paranormal UK radio network at paukradio.com. So my guest today is paranormal investigator Chris Whitehouse. Chris, welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks for the invite. It's much welcome.
No problem at all. It's great to have you on. We've been swapping a few emails, and you've been giving me some really interesting stories that I'd love to get into some of your investigations. But can we just start off by you sort of giving us a brief bio of yourself and how you got interested in the paranormal in the first place?
Yeah, sure. I got into the paranormal at a very young age. I mean, I do remember being at primary school, and we're talking about 6 years old and creating what I called the ghost gang. I got a few people together who were into ghosts like I was, and effectively started my first team, So
Yeah.
that's how into it I was. I think by then I'd already had a defining experience of my own in a bakery where we lived. And from that point on, I literally was obsessed. And that was my defining feature. You don't have much about you at 6, but I was into ghosts and monsters. And from then on, I mean, that was what I used to ask for Christmas, books on the paranormal every Christmas, which were very rare in those early days. And then eventually hit 2010 and created my first team. And then gets us to now, really, 11 years later, we're up to date.
So who was on your first team then?
Pretty much the same people who are on now, to be absolutely honest. I have a tight-knit community. I was looking on Facebook in those days, and local sites, local teams around this area, which were doing public investigations. I was sort of meeting other local people, and you'd get chatting in the comments, and I'd sort of reach out to the people who were most prevalent and most engaged. I'd say, I'm starting a team. You're not far from me. Do you fancy coming to meet me? I know I'm a stranger, but we'll meet up and chat in a pub, almost like a first date. And then, anyway, it's from history from there, really. I met another lad who ran a team, and we kind of merged. We've just been a unit of friends, really, from that time on.
Yeah. So whereabouts in the UK are you based?
You'd say Bradford, between Bradford and Skipton.
Okay. So not too far, actually, from where I live.
No, not at all.
So can we have a bit of a chat then about some of the investigations you've done? I mean, there's some quite local investigations, really, for both of us, given the proximity of where we both live. One of them that you mentioned that I'm really interested in, actually, is Haworth, which obviously, if people don't know where Haworth is, it's a small village in West Yorkshire, isn't it? And it's fairly close to the town of Keighley. And it's very well known for the home of the Bronte sisters, the literary sisters who wrote a number of well-known books. And I'm suddenly racking my brains. Was Pride and Prejudice one of them? And
Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, they're the predominant ones.
Yeah. Wuthering Heights, I think, is probably the most famous one, isn't it? So you did an investigation in Haworth. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, I've done several in Haworth, but the main focus of Haworth would be, as you say, the Brontes, and that will take you to Bronte Parsonage, and next to Bronte Parsonage is the old schoolrooms where the dad, I believe it was, used to teach and the girls went. And also they had a son, Bramwell, who was kind of against the sisters. They fell out. He used to frequent the Black Bull pub. So they've got a haunted pub, and there's a churchyard between all these locations where we've investigated a few times with the public. But yeah, so there's a very local hotspot of a few locations. I think the best place is the old school rooms, which you're no longer allowed to investigate in. The owners won't allow it. But we had our time in the sun there, to be honest, and it always gave good activity. Think of it as like a village hall in a way, with the stage at the front.
Mm.
And I think it was the best evidence I'd seen that I couldn't really skeptically counter was in that building when I did a table tipping session. First of all, table tipping, you put your hands lightly on a table and it moves around like a planchette would on a board. Although this was so erratic, this small board, it was literally jumping around all over the place like a giddy puppy, that we decided to pull over a very large, maybe, I don't think I'm exaggerating to say it was 4 or 5 foot wide and so thick and heavy, it would take a few of you to pull it across the stage. However, when we put our hands on it, it just went like it was on ice. And I couldn't rationally think of how we would do it. I even said to everyone, right, can we just try and move this board by pushing down this table, by pushing down on top?
Yeah.
And we couldn't. We couldn't. With our hands were sliding across it. So how then does it glide so easily without our being able to do it? You know, it was just a wonderful piece of evidence.
So was there any sort of visual or audio phenomena that you encountered while you were there?
You would get the odd noises on, because I'd use a dictaphone. But of course, when you're listening back to a dictaphone, it's very difficult to be able to say, well, that was not one of us. So yeah, I'm always one to throw it out if I'm in doubt. So we've had no decent captures there, but everyone who came and the team who've done team only things, we've always had good Ouija board communication.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, every night's different.
Yeah.
But
what sort of communications did you have through the Ouija board then? Can you remember?
Well, yeah, I don't think we had the Brontes themselves, but you'd have locals from that area coming through, and it's just so I go by like the levels of communication. I can't remember any specifics of what they said, but some nights you'll get letters spell out, but they don't really spell anything. Other nights you'll literally be having a spelt out conversation. And then I seem to remember there was talk of a zoo being on that location.
Okay.
And I was like, well, surely not, you know. And then days later, you'd hear someone say, no, apparently years and years and years ago, there was a zoo there. It's things like that. You're like, oh, right, well, that's of interest.
Yeah, because they used to keep exotic animals, didn't they? As especially in Victorian times. And if I mean they were quite a well-off family, I believe, weren't they? So it isn't beyond the realms of possibility that they did have some exotic animals as pets.
Maybe, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, I know from personal experience, the graveyard I actually found extremely spooky. And in fact, I spent a couple of days at Haworth quite a number of years ago now. I actually frequented the 2 pubs at the top of the hill, the top of the cobbled street.
Yeah.
Now I know you mentioned one which was a haunt of Bramwell.
Yeah.
Bramwell was a character by all accounts, and also he was an opium addict, I believe, and he used to go into that particular pub to score his opium. And there's a seat, isn't there, a chair where he apparently used to sit.
That's right.
So did you pick anything up then in either the pub or in the graveyard? Because I found both of them to be particularly atmospheric, actually.
I don't. All I remember of the Black Bull is that I was disappointed. And yet the graveyard I was taken there by one of the lads who I ended up merging with, side booth, and he ran a team, and he'd take the public up there. And you know what? They are creepy, but I would say they were one of the least active places that I've been. Isn't that weird? You know, they have a great reputation, and tourists love it, but no, I'd put them right down the bottom of the pile, to be absolutely honest.
Okay, that's interesting. So what would you put at the top of the pile then? Where do you think's the most active places you've ever been to?
That's an easy question, because for 10 years, let's say, we went on doing good investigations and thinking, oh, we've got his handle on this. And then we went to York, to a place like in the Shambles where all the houses lean over each other into the road and they're all misshapen. There's a B&B there, and we spent 2 nights there. I personally only went on the second night, but that has just changed everything. It's taken everything to a new level. We did a spirit rescue there, meaning that one of the spirits was asking for help because they were being attacked by another spirit who didn't reveal themselves until the second night. But upon doing so, the spirit who was the bully, if you like, has since been very disagreeable to us. And it was the first time, well, it was an amazing activity for a start. And then it followed us around. We came away, and that was the first investigation we ever didn't kind of complete. It was threatening to kill us in his sleep and stuff. And long story short, we left, and we went to cemeteries, sort of asking any other spirits what would help us. You know, what do we do about this guy when we go back? And the first spirit to come through was him, and he was, you know, swearing at us and threatening us. It's like, how the hell have you come all the way from York back to our home area? And that just opened up the floodgates, really. Everything has been hyper active since that day. So we're on like a second level of activity now, with our eyes open, like, oh, we didn't know everything there is to know. You know?
So who was this spirit then? And do you think he attached himself to either yourself or one of your team in order to follow you back to where you lived?
It's hard to say whether he attached himself, but he certainly, each one of us in the team, he's called Sam. That's all I know, really. I don't know a surname. He's called Sam, and yes, in a period of 2 weeks, we all reported activity in our homes, and then later on, Sam would go on to corroborate and tell us before we told him exactly what he did, so that we were like, yep, that's what I experienced, you know. So yeah, stalking us in a way, and showing power beyond all other spirits.
Yeah.
But I would.
Go on, I was going to say, how is he communicating with you?
Well, he'll show him. Well, we use a Ouija board,
right?
So
okay.
literally talk to him. But in our houses, it's a case of I'm relatively skeptical. I mean, I'm a believer now after what I've seen in the past year or two, but I discount so much, you know. However, even I woke up in the middle of the night and I've had a feeling that someone's in my room, and then like my kids' box of toys would go off in my room, and so I'd have these experiences, or I'd go to the loo and back and feel like there was somebody stood centimeters away from my face as I'm walking through the dark. And when we'd have a Ouija board session sometime after, and Sam would come through, I'd say, so was that you, and what did you do? And he'd even tell me what I did in response to him being there. And we all had these individual times. If you'd feel a presence, you just get that feeling that, oh, wait a minute, there's someone in this room with me. Or a cold, you know, a cold that's out of the ordinary.
Yes, like cold spots.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I've heard it said before, it's true, like being stood in front of a fridge door being open.
Yeah.
And you just get that real chill. In your own house, that's unusual because you know your own house, you know.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So have you or any of your team sort of spoken about maybe getting some sort of help to try and rid yourself of this this entity?
No, because this is why we do it, isn't it? You know, isn't this what you want?
Well, it is, but when they start follow, I mean, from my point of view, when they start, if something followed me into my house, and started to physically threaten me, I might think slightly different about it. You know, suddenly it's not an investigation as such. It's more, it's more of a possible danger.
I think most of my team would share that viewpoint. However, I'm not like that. If you go looking for sharks in the sea and a shark comes along, you don't then shoo a shark away. Do you know what I mean? This Sam, I think all spirits are misunderstood. I don't really believe as such yet in negative people. No one can be black and white, you know? Everyone's got a problem. If he's such a bad guy, well, to be honest, it's a bit unfair for me to say because he does seem to like me, whereas he hates women, and the rest of my team are women. So they have got a reason. You know, I haven't been threatened, and I must admit that is quite a relief. But no, if I was being scratched or harassed in some way, then yes, I don't know how I would handle it. But none of us have been. He's more of a nuisance in a mischievous way. And whenever you take your finger off the glass, he pretty much loses all power. You know, he's only powerful and threatening when we give him the energy. So I will say, everyone take your fingers off the glass right now, Sam. Do something with this energy that you're so strong with. And he doesn't. So it's like, there you go then. If we don't give you that, you know, how are you going to hurt us if we're not going to allow you to do it? You can't. So this is the sort of conversation we have with him.
Yeah.
He's a dog with a little loud bark, and he does do great things in his house. He can bang on walls, windows,
Okay.
and do things like that, which is what all I ever asked for. You know, like most people, you're like, well, show me. You know, why would I believe in ghosts until I saw evidence of a ghost? Which is, of course, it's rational. And that's all I ask for, really. So
yeah, because I was going to ask you whether or not he was whether there was any sort of physical manifestations, or whether it was just a sort of feeling that he's around. Because I understand how you perceive, you know, the feeling that there is something around you, because I've been in situations myself where I've had those feelings, so I can understand, you know, where you're coming from with that. But you're saying that there's also physical manifestations as well. So he's banging on doors, and does he move objects? Does he hide objects? That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, in his house. The day before I went, they went on a Friday. I went on a Saturday, and on the Friday, my teammates were messaging me saying this place is completely different. We've had a candle in a, not a candelabra, but a candlestick sort of move off the table. We've had a guitar on a wall strumming, and we've all heard it. So they would ask for activity and get it, and be completely shocked. And then you'd have those waves of there's somebody here, but then it's calm. And, you know, I'm thinking, oh, they're probably just overexcited. They're away on holiday in a creepy looking house. You can't deny it. Having a time of their lives. So when I got there, I thought, well, let's just see what happens. But yeah, immediately I was taken with the place, and we first met the lady who we went on to move over, called Ursula, and I held my hand out to this spirit and felt, and this was summer like now, and I felt there's this cold breeze all over my hand, like I was having my hand shook. And I was like, oh right, well that's a bit of a first. I mean, you can always discount that, you know, as a breeze, but it wasn't really logical. It was a nice coincidence.
Yeah.
And then we're starting to do the board, and the lights just go out just as soon as we start doing things. And again, you're thinking, well, that's weird. but electricity can go on and off. So I check the electricity, and then you sort of asking, well, show yourself now, do something now, and bang on the window, or there's a big noise in the fireplace. And with everybody else literally seeing a face pop out of the wall or black masses move past them, it was just like, well, how many coincidences? This is a team that have investigated 11 years plus, and aren't phased by things. And yet all of us were like seeing the most we'd ever seen.
So what you mentioned that about a face popping out of the wall. I mean, was it full features or was it sort of?
Yeah, Lucy saw that, I believe. Well, Lucy would be looking in that direction as we're around the board, and I think she said a little boy. It's on my YouTube channel because actually I recorded the session, so my memory might be a little fuzzy. But yeah, I'm sure she said she saw a face. There was one of those fireplaces what's no longer used. It has like flowers in it, I think, something like that.
Yeah, like the chimney's been blocked up or something like that.
Yeah, but Lucy sees quite a lot of faces, and she even supposedly has seen Sam's face and painted him. He has a mask, like a Phantom of the Opera, is half a burnt face. I know that's very. It's like, oh, here we go. That he's disfigured and he's spooky. That's just the way it is. So yeah, it's Lucy the one who saw him, but. I mean, I don't. A lot of the time, I'm concentrating on the work, either looking at my equipment or whatever. It's everyone else who's feeling a bit nervous. They'll be casting their eyes around the room, and they'll get the chance to see things. You know what I mean?
Do you know what period in history this from?
I'm thinking it was 1800s. Again, I've got my full write-ups on the website with the dates and stuff. And Most Haunted have just done a dramatisation podcast of this investigation I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually later on, but you can tell us a bit more about how that collaboration came about, if you don't mind.
Well, I did always, before I did the YouTube thing, do write-ups. I'd record it and get it down, the dictation of it, and so. Because I knew that was such a great investigation anyway, I was really looking forward to writing it out. So I'd written it out and I'd messaged Yvette Fielding's Paranormal Activity with Yvette Fielding podcast and saying, oh, this Sam followed us around from his house to cemeteries, and I didn't believe anyone could do that. That was a bit of an eye-opening thing. And that got on the programme, but I'd also sort of said, oh, and if you're looking into that further, then here's the write-up link. Heard nothing more of it for a year or whatever. And then just last Monday, I listened to the latest episode and see that it's titled My Team Name's Name. So I'm listening myself like, what? And then, yeah, they'd got voice actors in and dramatised it with sound effects. And it's just the first half because it's such a long session. So this Monday, that'll be the second half of that. So there was no real collaboration other than I'd sent my write-up as an extra thought. And they've put some real editing work into it. And it sounds great, even listening to it myself. I'm like, that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually she didn't contact you herself about it.
I know. Yeah, I've investigated with her 4 times, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where was that then? Where did you do the investigations with that?
Well, you can do it with Most Haunted Experience is the group, as it were, formed where the public can pay to investigate all around the country, and meet the team, basically meet the cast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did Hack Green Underground Bunker. I did a morgue in Liverpool, St Helens. Oh, where else have I done?
I believe that they used to do the police station and the courts in Accrington.
Yeah. Oh, have I done Accrington? I can't remember now. Yeah. Wentworth Woodhouse. I did there with them. But yeah, anyway, you pay to go, you pay to meet them, and they signed my Ouija board and stuff like that. And I had a good conversation with Yvette. So
Yeah.
she always kind of remembers me because I hint at what we spoke about, and it was very niche. And so she was like, "Oh yes, I remember you. I remember that conversation." So yeah, I like to think that she does remember me.
Yeah, well, she's a good Lancashire lass, is Yvette. So
Yeah.
I won't have anything bad said against her. Okay, so going back to York then. So was there any other parts of the investigation when you were in York? Did you just do the one location, or have you done other locations in York?
No, this was the first for me. I kind of got dragged out of my comfort zone. You know, the others will go exploring, but I'm a bit of I like to go back home. So they booked to sleep, and I was just going on an evening trip, saying I'm not staying. I'm going back home. You know, that's just the way I am. And so it was, like I say, it was against my normal plans. So I headed home, but the difference was everybody else came home with me. They refused to stay the second night, and I was like, I've never seen any of you like this at all. And in a few weeks, we are going back. We finally got booked to return to his house, where he threatens to suffocate us in his sleep. And he's gone quiet. As soon as we booked to go back, he's been absolutely silent, which is unnerving.
Has he ever sort of given you any indication of why he wants to harm you? Or yeah, go on.
Because when we went to his house, the first night we got to meet Ursula, which was the woman he was persecuting, and she was like his home help, and he thought he owned her. Like, he calls her a slave. He raped her. Did they have a child? I'm trying to remember. Basically, she said, "There's this guy. He's horrible. It's the fourth spirit." And then they met all three. Just this one mystery spirit who didn't reveal himself until I came. And anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm talking to Ursula. She's a lovely woman. And then this mystery character reveals himself to be Sam, and he's the one we should be scared of. And I basically asked Ursula, "Do you want to leave?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so we essentially passed her over. And then there was one less spirit. I asked the board, how many spirits now? Ursula had gone. And then Sam was just instantly, "Where is she? What have you done with her?
Right.
I'm going to kill you all,"
Yeah.
And all the investigations after was like, "Where's Ursula?" And I was like, "I don't know. Not with us."
Right. So he's pretty cheesed off at you guys for moving her on then, obviously.
He always said, "Hunt. I'm hunting her. I'm hunting her and my child, Violet."
Right.
Yeah. He just and I also tried to banish him. I should mention that.
Okay.
I did try to get rid of him. I tried to get rid of him, and it failed. And he was like, "No."
Okay. Can I ask about the mechanics of that then? How you, first of all, how you would move somebody on? So how you moved Ursula on, and secondly, how you tried to banish Sam and unfortunately failed. What techniques did you use?
Yeah. Now, I've heard people say they can do this, mediums and such like. I am not a medium, and so what we did was simply guess, to be absolutely honest, but it's worked in the past. We essentially say to the spirit, like if I was talking to you, Craig, and you were a spirit, and I'd be saying, "Right, we're going to move you over. So my team are going to create this loving light in the room. I want you to see a doorway opening somewhere in the room, like a bright light. Can you see it yet? Can you, is there anything there?" And the spirit will say yes or no. And then eventually it'll say yes. And I'll say, "Right, I want you to see, I want you to wait here until somebody comes through it." And I seem to remember, do I remember? Anyway, somebody she recognised came through and she told us who it was. And it might have been a dad, might have been a brother, I can't quite remember. But that's what you'll get. You'll get a loved one. She's like, "Oh, wonderful, my husband's here." And I'm like, well, you take his hand and you go through that doorway with him. And now that's all I'm doing. I'm just saying it. I'm just imagining it. I'm not have any skill any more than anything else. But it's just that another member, Si, of my team, he's done that in the past and it worked. And so that's all I'm doing. I'm kind of imagining it and the board's reacting, saying, yeah, it works. But then the second part of the question, how do you get rid of Sam? I had this banishment prayer, and I have no religious, anything religious about me. I started banishing prayer. I thought, well, I'll read this out. Let's see if this works. So, in the name of all that's holy, da 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 da, and it was like, no, still here. So it's like, right, well, I don't know what to do. So I'd be like, right, Sam, we need to come to some sort of agreement. I've never left a spirit on a bad note. Let's come to some agreement. She's gone now. I've moved her over. I don't know where she's gone, but she's gone. You've got to move on with your life. She's dead. You're dead. What's the point in holding on? I'm trying to reason with it. No. Are you gonna calm down? No. This is my house.
Did he know he was dead? Did he know he was dead?
Yeah. He refuses to move over. I'm like, you can move over. It's like, I don't want to. I'm God here. I am king. And he's just like flexing all the time. And I'm like, well, you are. Yeah, you are. You're impressing me more than any other spirit, to be absolutely honest. And I'm like, we were just like, he's not going to move over. We don't have the skills. We're just regular people.
Yeah.
I can't see him with my psychic vision or something. So I'm kind of powerless. If that is such a thing, I don't know.
So the technique of moving spirits on sounds very much like when somebody naturally passes over, and we get people who've had near-death experiences who say there's a bright light and you see relatives and relatives who've passed on and they're waiting for you, and you sort of go into this light, and that's how you pass from this existence into the next. So you're sort of basically just coaxing the spirit to do what they would naturally do, and for some reason they've not been able to do it.
Yeah, essentially it. Saying, well, all the spirits tell us how it is on you ask about what's the afterlife like, and you know that there's a light but there's no sun, and like you say, you hear so many accounts of you go down a bright light and the bright light is to the afterlife, the dark tunnel is back to this world of pain and the weight of your body, so yeah, it's just like channeling what you've heard and saying, well, supposedly you should see a light and a door, and they're like, yeah, I do. So you're like, well, good, it's just take that door then, and then it all goes quiet, and you're like, that's weird. That seems to have worked,
Yeah, I suppose it's quite reassuring then, really, isn't it? Because we're all going to have to take that journey at some point.
Yeah, we have learned so much about the afterlife through asking spirits and finding that they all agree, Yeah.
So like what, for instance? Give us an example of what you've been told.
Reincarnation. That is the biggest thing they all agree on, and we stumbled upon that more than anything. All spirits tell us that you have 7 reincarnations, so that means that you have 8 lives on this planet. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all a learning process. So on the other side, when you go back to the afterlife, like I'm on we call it levels. I'll say, what level am I? And all the spirits will say 6, which meaning I'm on my 6th life. I have 2 more incarnations on Earth, as it were. So I'll ask a spirit, what level are you on? Oh, I might say 3, whatever. And when you're on that side, you get to choose to come back and take another lesson. Now, you might be a different gender or ethnicity or whatever. It's all about learning and you to evolve to go to the next phase. And apparently, there's no work on that side, but there are things to do. it's not like it's. I used to worry that it was just boring and carol singing, and they were like, no, there's stuff to do. It's just that, and a lot of them just travel around the earth doing all the they can be in Egypt one minute and back with a family relative the next. It's just different for them, and time stands still, and everything sounds great. They call it like a bliss. It's a blissful feeling to have that weight of your body lift as they pass over, and they go to this land where there's no sun. It's all light. But
so
yeah,
is it a different? No, sorry. Is it a different level of consciousness, or is it a different plane of existence? Is it a different dimension? Is it? I mean, do they call it heaven, or do they call it something else?
if they're religious, they call it heaven. It's just names, isn't it? It's just words. Same as jinn and demon. It's like the same, about the same thing. But yeah, I was talking to one just the other day, and it agreed that most spirits all spirits will tell you Hinduism is the closest correct religion, the closest. But he still described himself as like Catholic and God. He still had his personal phrasing on that side. So religion is still like a personal choice, but Hinduism is the structure to the nearest religion we have, which is big on reincarnation. It's like you have your mind wiped. I asked a spirit if about my sister's life before this one, and it told her name, told her who she was married to. She lived in Australia, and it rang a bell with her. She's like, so weird. I have this, I was talking about going to Australia the other day. I really wanted to go, and she was called Enid. She was an old lady in Australia, and there's no verifying it. Of course there isn't. But it's the fact that all spirits would be like, when you get them talking on the same subject, they agree. And I won't put words in their mouth. I'm like, do you tell me what it's like? And they'll say, oh, I'm on level 6. And my daughter, who I lost, she's done her 8 and she's off to what comes after. Now, there's a thing about pure beings of light. Once you've done your 8 lessons, I'll call it, you can then qualify for being a being of light. And those beings of light can act as guardians of people on Earth, like what people might think of guardian angels. They come and watch over us. Now, guardian angels is a whole other topic, but I've heard so many fascinating stories on, in time of need, these guardian angels turning up, winged and saving them in a crash and all sorts of weird things. But yeah, the people who you think there's somebody watching over me. Now, a lot of the time it can be family members, but a lot of the time it's just strangers who are like, I'm going to watch over that person. Think about it. There's no work, but there are things to do. And they hear a lot. They're watching us like we watch telly because it's entertaining, But it's also, we have all the perils of work and relationships. And once you're not on this plane, all that seems so trivial. Trivial nonsense we get bogged down with, Sorry.
So what? No. So why? No, it's fine. I'm just really interested in what you're saying, because this has obviously gone off at a tangent as to what I was expecting us to talk about.
Yeah.
I was expecting us to talk about, obviously, investigations and that sort of thing, but I am really interested in the whole, I suppose, mysticism really of what you're talking about, and the fact that you mention, once you've done, because that was a question I was going to ask you, what happens after your 8th reincarnation. So do you think that there is some religious aspect to this then? Do you think that this is where a lot of our religion comes from these beings of light, being looked upon as angels and gods and that sort of thing?
Well, there is a structure. There's a hierarchy. Okay, so what's the other example? I guess
So does God exist? Is there an
Yes,
almighty being?
yes,
Okay.
there is a God, but there are lesser gods. When we go over there, we don't meet the big man or big woman. We meet like their lower government, you know. And we did get one of their names through, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm under so and so's group, and that's my essentially demigod. But there's a big thing what comes to a lot when I ask these questions. Well, my team will ask these questions. A lot of the time, it'll be like, right, it's enough. We're not even supposed to be telling you this.
Mm.
You know, there are rules, but of course there are rules on Earth, speeding rules, and yet people break them. You know, it's like there are rules. We're not supposed to come back and tell you the answers because that's a cheating your exam, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you could have a kid in his exam, and would you really want to tell him all the answers to the test? What is he going to learn then? It's like you want to help people, but we need to learn. We're here to do the learning. So there is over there, yes, there is something beyond like a hierarchy, and there is an ultimate power, but it even goes further than that. I've said, is there an afterlife after the afterlife? And they seem to say yes, after you've done your eight lives. It was hinted at, and I haven't had any more information on this yet. It was hinted at that you might even do another eight at another dimension, and then it wouldn't go into it. It just would not tell me. But somewhere else in the galaxy, I mean, it's a big universe, right?
Mm.
But yeah, I don't have the answers. I'm only telling you. I don't have the knowledge. You know, I'm just telling you what's been said to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So are these aliens?
It's a good
Aliens?
question. Right.
Yeah.
That is a good question. I don't know. I don't have those answers. I think we have been told aliens exist, but aliens. I was thinking about aliens the other day, and it's like, are they just us from the future?
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they come back to watch over us because who else is going to be interested in us? Really, we're big into ourselves, aren't we? We're very, you know.
Yeah. Very much so.
So yeah, I don't know the answer to that. This is
Okay.
one of the questions.
Yeah. No. That well, I have to say that's been a fascinating discussion. That part of our chat. I didn't expect it to go that way, and you know that's certainly given me a lot to think about. And I hope you know the listeners have sort of taken a bit of a step back with that one because that was quite unexpected. Can we sort of just reel it back a little bit and go back to some of your investigations and maybe talk about you did an investigation at a school, didn't you, recently called Stonyhurst?
Cemetery, yeah.
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 Do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because I've got a personal link to that. It's for people that don't know, Stonyhurst is a private school. It was a Jesuit college. It still is a Catholic college. It's a boarding private school. And my wife works there as a teacher, so I do have a link, and I've actually been there myself a number of times, and it is a fascinating place. It's a wonderful building, and they have some amazing artifacts in the museum that they have there. So you investigated the cemetery.
Yeah, we went over and, you know, just respectfully say, look, spirits, we're here to talk and check our intentions are true. I know you can read what we intend. And so we sort of made our peace with whoever was there. And we had a male spirit come through first, and he gave us the smell of incense. We sort of thought, and yeah, he ended up being a religious man and just a lovely guy. But then he was like, don't talk to Paul," and we were like, "Okay, all right, fair enough." And then another spirit to come through later was Paul. And it's like, "Well, we've been warned about you, Paul, by this nice fella."
Mm.
Um, so I kind of want to do what the nice guy asked, but also I don't know who's really telling the truth, do I? You know, you don't. Some spirits can pretend to be nice when they're not. So, yeah.
Did he give you any reason then to be wary of him, this Paul, or did he give you any sort of indication about who he was, or what time period he was from, or why he was still hanging around?
No, I think I presume that the priesty guy worked at the school or in that area, because it has that sort of history, doesn't it?
It does.
And I think he just still loved the place, and obviously was turning up. He was probably the first on the scene of, hey, what are these guys up to? But he was chatty. I mean, I recorded it. It's on my YouTube. I don't take in a lot of the information. Do you know what I mean? I'm in the moment, and then I kind of move on with what was said. But I remember he was a lovely guy.
So again, were you using a Ouija board again then at this point?
Yeah. The Ouija board just works the best for us. I've never had a problem with it. Some humans don't like it, but it's literally a board with some letters what I've wrote on it. No, it was fine, and it just works really well for us. We have the communication here was really clear. For whatever reason, I don't know whether that is down to the spirits or whether it's literally the people you have around the board, almost like finally tuning in a radio station. You know, some groups of people just work. And I know that particularly when my teammate Lucy's on the board, it's just clear.
So she's quite good at channeling the energy then, do you think? Is she?
I really believe it. She would be like, am I? But yes, I really do know people who I just know that, oh, they're coming. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Things will be good.
And do you think that the location has probably got something to do with it as well?
I mean, I don't know. It's a lovely place. Although I was sold it as, I've been here before, Chris. It gets terrifying. I can't wait to see you scared. And I just got a lovely feeling from it. I don't know whether we ourselves add to the energies that are there. If you go in and you're scared, I think those energies get ramped up, whereas I'm not scared, and I just want to go out, shake the hands, give them a hug, and you know.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting place. I've heard sort of little bits and pieces. I mean, I would love to investigate the school.
Yes, absolutely.
But I don't think it's ever going to happen because of you know, the just the way that the school is set up, the way that it's run. I mean, I've been allowed, you know, to go inside with my wife, and she's taken me on a sort of tour of, you know, of the old part of the school. And I would love. I know that there are. I've heard that there is, you know, certain types of activity that have happened at times, and I would love to do an investigation, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. I mean, I have talked to an ex-teacher there who was an art teacher, and she told me some quite interesting, you know, poltergeist activity. What other did you manage to get in contact with any other spirits then, apart from the religious man and this Paul? I mean, I'm just interested in this Paul. I mean, did he turn out to be a bit of a bad one, or you know, did you find
he was okay? He was saying he was a demon. Okay, he's like, I'm a demon. You should be scared. You know, and I was just like, no, you're not. He's doing that 666. And to be honest, as I mentioned on the investigation, I'm like, why is it when we get demon and 666, we yawn? It just brings out that response of, don't be stupid. No, you're not. And in the end, we got a lady spirit, and I said to the lady, oh, that's right, another lovely lady. And she was a very protective spirit. And I said, hey, I think she was called Lilith. I said, Lilith, who is that demon one? Who is that Paul? And she's like, oh, it's just a 17-year-old messing about. you know, and they always do seem to be the ones that profess to be Satan always turn out to be some young teenager, like you would imagine.
That's quite sad then, really, isn't it? That obviously something's happened. They've died very young, and for some reason they've not been able to pass over. It's quite sad, really, isn't it?
I don't think that's how it works a lot of the time. We open up a torchlight to the sky, if you like, and in their darkness they see this lighthouse, and they're like moths to a flame.
Okay.
They come to us. That, you know, cemeteries are the least spiritual places you go. There's no need to be there. There's bodies there. There's waste material. You know, they are on the other side, and then they see a light switch on, and they can come to us. It's an invitation. That's all I do. I say, hey, anyone fancy coming towards our white light from their blackness? And they can. And I don't think there's any spirit that is actually trapped. But I think if they believe they are trapped by religious thoughts such as that, I'm not ready to go over, then that's self-trapping. And I have to explain to them, you're not trapped. You can go over. Thus, you go over, open the door. There's your family member. Go with them. They will take you. And that normally fixes it. We had a place in Haworth, and we had a spirit who said he couldn't pass over because his children were not baptized, his spirit children. And we were like, you can. That your spirit children have gone. You can now, something like, you can go over. And he's like, well, I can't though, because, you know, I don't want to leave my kids. It's like, they're not here. You can go. And so he was only trapped because he thought he wasn't allowed over. It's like, just go, mate, you know.
Have you ever come across a spirit who didn't realise they were dead?
Yeah. Yes, we do. Sometimes I've asked the question. I'm like, you do know you're dead, right? And then it's like, it's anger. The glass will go all over, and you're like, whoa, I'm sorry, I didn't realise that you literally didn't know. You know, this is not your house anymore. That's why this family is here in your house, because you died. You don't remember, too sudden. And because they'll be like, it's 1975 and this is my house. What are you doing in it? I'm like, it's not 1975, 2020 or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, again, if their mind doesn't understand, then that's what you're up against. And you have to prove to them, you have to show them your date on your phone or a newspaper or something. And then with a little bit of sympathy towards them, they get it, you know, and then they're all right.
That must be quite a shock to the spirit, though.
Yeah, like I say,
it'd be like it'd be like you saying to me, now, actually, Craig, you're dead. We're having this conversation now, but you're dead.
And you get you angry. You're like,
everything you see around you is just a figment of your imagination. You know, the people that are in your, I mean, who knows? You know, I mean, we really are going down the rabbit hole now, aren't we? But, you know, I mean, you know, everything around me, I mean, I might not actually be here. it's a very big question, isn't it? But I mean, do they get angry then, these spirits, or do they sort of, is it sort of like a dawning realization that actually they always knew they were dead, they just weren't prepared to accept it?
Yes, some literally do not know, but I find that to be on the low side. Generally speaking, they want acknowledgement. That's. I think spirits are everywhere. They come, they sit, look at you, they go, but there's spirits that come to their old house or refuse to leave because, I mean, you hear about it a lot. Renovations. They put all this love into their home. You come in and don't want that wall there. And you knock it down. We had I know I went to a house where the window was always opening, and the woman who lived there before had always had the window open. However, she died, and this new family wanted it shut. And so eventually we're getting through with this woman, and it's like, she tells us, I always had the window open. Why can't we you know, why can't we have that window open all the time? That's why I'm opening it. It's like, look, can we do something else? You're dead. It's no longer your house. Can we buy you something to in your memory? And several times it's been, yes, a vase of flowers, put it in that window to remember me.
Mm.
And so that is usually, I mean, yeah, always, apart from Sam, that is always the compromise. What can we do to appease you?
Mm.
You tell us. We went to some Bradford offices, and this Jewish spirit was like, put up a Jewish star, the Star of David, and I'll stop. I'll back off.
Mm.
And then the tenants were sort of like, yeah, we can do that. Absolutely, we'll do that. No problem. 3 weeks to a month later, they're ringing me back up. Oh, it's all kicking off down here. So I turn up. And I'm like, did you put that Star of David up? Well, we drew it on a piece of paper and hung it up. And then it fell, it fell down. I'm like, no. You did say you would. So it's kind of that. It's like flowers, a statue, something, a plaque. I don't know. You need to do. It's an offering. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's like a sort of something that can be tangible for the spirit to see.
respect. It's just respect.
Respect. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's really interesting. Have you got any up and coming investigations that you're particularly looking forward to?
I mean, definitely going back to York, going back to Sam's house is a given. But this Saturday, I'm going back to a cemetery where I saw my first. I mean, I can't 100% say it was a spirit, but as far as I'm concerned, it was a spirit of some sort. So yeah, I'm going back to a cemetery, which is the only place where I've ever felt afraid in my whole 11 years of doing this. So
Whereabouts is that, if you can
it's
tell?
Bingley.
Bingley, okay.
Yeah.
And why was that a particularly scary place?
Well, this is the weird thing. I don't get scared. And yet, when I was there and I'd got the team there, I just had this overwhelming feeling of we should go. Fight or flight, and it was flight.
Mm.
And I didn't say anything because I thought, well, I've arranged this. I've got us all here on a Saturday night. And something is telling me, Chris, you should, all of you, not tonight. Get out of here. And kept my mouth shut for a while. And then eventually, again, Lucy saw a face over the shoulder of our medium at the time. And then Sam showed up. And then Ruth, a protective spirit from Ilkley, jumped in to say, "I've got you back from Sam. I'm looking after you." And there was Lucy saw like a totem pole of faces with wings coming out of it, if you can understand, like heads with wings on.
Yeah.
And so it was all very weird. People were getting freaked out, and fear does spread. But I'm like, you know what? I was earlier. I was feeling scared, and I felt like we shouldn't be here, and it was all getting quite overwhelming. But I'm the one who takes control. I will not allow fear to spread. You know, when the team are getting riled, I'm like, no, come on now. I'm not having it, because we'd all get scared. But I'm admitting then that I got scared earlier for no reason. But I'm okay now. However, give it half an hour later, I'm like, that feeling is coming back. There's just this feeling that we need to go now. And I turn around and imagine a summer's night like tonight, but I'm literally watching a bit of cloud, a mist. I would also like to describe it as a veil, it's a white, flimsy, see-through shape, drift. And I'm watching it go along this open graveyard. and then it goes off behind a tree, and my eyes start watering because that's my fear response. And I'm like, I have just seen something that I don't know what it was. Now, I don't know whether it was a bad thing or a protective thing. All I can tell you is it shouldn't have been there, and I looked right at it, and that was pretty much the end of the night. We were like, yeah, let's just call it a day. So this particular graveyard has that connection to me. However, I will always enter it with an open mind, but it's almost like I'm stepping into a place that could overwhelm me. You know, one of my investigators says I'm not going back there again when you ask, and she hasn't yet. And there's only going to be 3 of us. So if anything goes wrong on Saturday, well, I don't know.
Just the 3 of you. Be interesting to get you back on after you've been back to Sam's place. I'd love to have you back on actually, and you can give us an update of what happens when you go back there, and also the Bingley one as well. I think it'd be interesting to chat with you about. I believe you're writing a book, or you're thinking of writing a book.
I have written a book. I finished it.
Okay.
And it is on chapter 10 of editing with my editor, who is my sister. She's doing a wonderful job of making my writing better.
What's it called?
It's called Into the Darkness, and becoming a ghost hunter. And for Halloween, I hope it's going to be on Amazon and Kindle.
Yeah. No, well, that'd be ideal time to get it on there, wouldn't it? That'd be brilliant. Where can people get in contact with you, apart from YouTube?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. White House Investigations pretty much will hit us. Yeah.
Okay.
Social media, pretty simple.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. And there's plenty of investigations on your YouTube channel if people want to go and have a look at some of the stuff you've been doing.
Well, yeah, there's the last a couple of years maybe, but in video form. But then on my website, there is nearly all my investigation write-ups that were worthy.
Okay. And what's your website?
www.whitehouseinvestigations.co.uk.
Okay, brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure, Chris, and a really interesting discussion. Not your normal run-of-the-mill paranormal discussion. I don't think some of the subjects that we went down. I genuinely did find them really interesting. So, thanks for sharing your experiences with us. And as I said, I'd love to have you back on again. Please drop me a line when you've done some more investigations, and we'll have part 2 of the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure that the listeners will as well, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you sometime in the future. Thank you for coming on.
Cheers, Craig. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.